Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you today for a Sunday? Well, you guys, I am a little off kilter because I did this video yesterday. It was an hour and a half. And when I completed the video, I did not have any sound. So I have to recreate this video from scratch all over. And I want to make sure that this is not going to happen again. So my apologies. I'm going to try to do my best to do this video as fully as I did yesterday, but it was a lot of information and I don't want to miss anything. So I'm going to take my time today to do this video again. It's going to be about at least an hour and a half long, and I just hope that I don't miss anything. So let's get started. Yesterday, my daughter and we did like a little experiment because I was still bothered about the 911 call. And I wanted to know, with 4 roommates, Ethan, Zaina, Haley, and Maddie, and they're receiving these text messages and phone calls from Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson, the history that we see that was provided in the objection by the defense, we're seeing them not just message each other, but we're seeing calls made, we're seeing online apps being used, but we're also seeing messages and calls to Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Zaina. And my thought was, you're in this house. Now, Dylan Mortenson, she was on the 2nd floor. Bethany Funke is on the 1st floor of the house. This is a 3-story house. Let me try to get a picture of the house. Okay. Let me share my screen so you can visually see what I am thinking and what we were discussing yesterday. So the house is 3 stories. This is the side of the house. This is the rear of the house, the front of the house, and then the other side we can't see. Excuse me. Now, what I was thinking, if Bethany Funke is on the 1st floor, if we see the ladder here, and then on the 2nd floor, we see that Dylan Mortenson is on the 2nd floor, we know that Zaina and Ethan are also on the 2nd floor, the November 12th into November 13th, the day of the murders. And then on the 3rd floor, we had Kaylee and we had Maddie. Now, my thoughts were, when Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson were concerned and they were texting Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zaina and calling them as well, did they not hear their phones? Did they not hear when those text messages were getting sent, those dings, and did they not hear any of their phones ringing? Now, I tried to see, just out of my own curiosity, what would happen if I'm in this room where I'm recording, and then I have my daughter go about 40 feet away in a separate room, close the door, and put her cell phone under, like in between her pillow. And I said, I'm going to call you. I'm going to see, can I hear the ringing? So we tried it, and I could hear the ringing. Now, that's not to say, do we know if their phones were still working? Were the ringers on? All of that, right? We don't know. But out of four phones, I would think if you're calling, and they were calling each person back to back to back, they would try to call Kaylee, and then Maddie, then Zayna, then Ethan. Per the history that was provided in the defense objection, did they not hear these phones ringing? Or when they're sending these messages, can they hear that the message was sent and then received on these phones? I'm sure at this point it's very quiet in the house. It's after 4 a.m. allegedly. Um, were these phones receiving the messages with the ding? Were the phones ringing? It's just a very odd situation, and that was really something I thought about, and it was bothering me. And I'm going to go, of course, more into detail about my thoughts, but that was just something that we kind of wanted to see. Would I be able to hear that phone ringing? If it was 40 feet away, the door was shut, and the phone was in the pillow. Just to quiet it to see that far of a distance, could you hear it? Now, remember, Dylan Funk was on the second floor, so Haley and Maddie would have been on the third floor above her, and then, of course, Ethan and Zayna would have been in Zayna's bedroom at the time. So it's just something to think about, something to consider with all of what we know. Okay, so I wanted to have that point. Um, and I have so many other things that I want to talk about. Something else um, that I want to talk about. I want to talk about, and this is relating to the 911 call and how on the 911 call, the dispatcher is saying, I need to know what do you need? Do you need an ambulance? Do you need some services? You know, what is the condition of the roommate that you're saying was passed out? And if it didn't make it in the other videos, to me, it was describing what I felt was an overdose because they never mentioned blood. They never mentioned any wounds. And I'm going to go more into detail, much more into detail in this video. But that wasn't on the 911 call. They described Zayna as being drunk the prior night and being passed out, which does not come close to the scene that we are told was at 1122 King Road. Um, I find it very hard to find a lot of articles that said that there was blood everywhere, it was a heinous crime scene, things like that. But I do have one that I'm going to go over. But the scene that the public was informed existed was this was a very heinous, very bloody crime scene, that there was blood on the outside, the side of the house. There was blood in other areas, and I personally saw blood running down the kitchen walls where there was an opening for a walkway like a door. So what the 911 call doesn't reveal is any blood. And I find that very hard to understand and accept when we have been told that this scene was a very, very bloody crime scene. So I want to go over an article. It's linked on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. The article is on crimeonline.com. It's dated November 16th, 2022. It's by Lee Egan, and it's titled, Police Shot by Amount of Blood Oozing Through Walls Following Gruesome Deaths of 4 University of Idaho Students. So I'm gonna pull that picture back up that I just had of the house. Following the deaths of four University of Idaho students, police assisting in the investigation were reportedly shocked at the amount of blood found at the crime scene. There was blood everywhere. We have investigators who have been on the job for 20, even 30 years, and they say they have never seen anything like this. A police source told Daily Mail. The outlet described the scene as blood oozing through the walls of the rented home located near the campus, along with blood found on the side of the house and the back porch. As Crime Only previously reported, Moscow police said Ethan Chapin, 20, Madison Mogen, 21, Zayna Kernodle, 20, and Kaylee Gonclaves were found dead at the residence. A local official described the slayings as a crime of passion, while Moscow police indicated that it was an isolated, targeted attack, and there is no imminent threat to the community at large. Police arrived at the home after someone called for help regarding an unresponsive person at the home on King Road. When I heard that, and I've talked about this in other videos, that the person was unresponsive, I did not believe that the call was reported accurately or coded accurately by the dispatcher, because what they would be describing would be something out of a nightmare. Just blood concentrated on the floor, the walls, the bedding, if there was a desk, a table, any other furniture, clothing, the ceiling light, everywhere. There would be a tremendous amount of blood saturated on items. Okay, because of the attack with the flinging of the blood, the cast off of the blood, the dripping of the blood. Um, it would just be a horrible scene. Okay. The victims were later found dead from what police described as a knife or edged weapon attack, although the weapon has not yet been located. Latah County Coroner Kathy Mabbitt, they don't have said, but said that the scene was very sad and there was lots of blood, according to 11 Alive News. Federal agents were called in to assist the Moscow police and the Latah County Prosecutor's Office. We do not believe there is an ongoing threat for community members, Moscow police said in a statement Tuesday. Investigators are continuing to work diligently on establishing a timeline of relevant events to recreate the victims' activities on the evening of November 12th and early morning of November 13th, following all leads and identifying persons of interest. So, let me see what other pictures I can pull up of the house. This is a picture of the front of the house. So, to just go over and highlight a few things from this art, they are describing the scene with the words blood everywhere, that the police were shocked, that investigators that had 20, 30 years of policing experience, they found the scene to be something that they had never seen, so much brutality, so much violence. That blood was oozing through the walls, through the walls. And remember, that I'm describing to you, blood that I saw in the kitchen, the blood had to come from the bedroom above down, down to the second floor, from the third floor down, okay? Oozing through the walls. Blood found on the side of the house. Blood found on the back porch. Now, the 911 call, the 911 call wants us to think that Zayna was passed out. But we know this is not true. And this is going to lead me to the next important thing that I want to bring up. Okay. And it's going to be in Brent Payne's PCA. Okay. He details to us how he arrived on the scene and what he saw as he came in through this front door of 1122 King Road, went up that flight of stairs to the second floor, and how he visibly sees Zayna's body. Why didn't Dylan Mortenson or Bethany Funke see Zayna's body? So I'm going to read that information to you so we can contrast what's said on the 911 call, really what is not said. What is not said, that there's a blood everywhere, that the roommates, Haley, Maddie, Ethan, and Zayna were attacked, were brutally attacked, all dead. No movement, no life. They've been deceased by this 11:58 a.m. 911 call for about 7.5 hours. There is no life in them. Okay? They are deceased. So I'm going to go to Brent Payne's affidavit to talk about the scene, what he saw, and we can relate that and compare that to the 911 call of what the various people on the call were reporting. Okay, so I want to bring up a different picture. This might be a good picture to cover, include the roommates. I'm trying to get this one. It's about what third one. Oh, that's enlarged. Okay. And this is a view of the back of the house. I really don't like this picture. Let me see. I'm sure I can get a better picture. This is a nice picture. Okay. So we're starting on page 1, and we're going to the third paragraph. Okay. This is Brent Payne's statement. Officer Smith and I, excuse me, let me pause for a second. I do want to state again that the 911 call, it was made at 11:58 a.m. That's what was reported. Brent Payne, in his affidavit, in the second paragraph, he states, on November 13, 2022, at approximately 4 p.m., Moscow Police Department Sergeant Laker and I responded to 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, hereafter the King Road residence, to assist with scene security and processing of a crime scene associated with 4 homicides. So, Brent Payne is stating, is writing that he arrived at 4 p.m. This is about 4 hours after the 911 call. Now, again, where is the urgency? Where is the emergency? If the 911 call is made at 11:58 a.m. and the initial police arrive at the scene and they see this horrific crime scene, as described just now, blood everywhere, blood oozing out of the walls, something that the officers did not ever see, never experienced this level of violence, this type of crime, this stabbing, right? This attack on 4 college students. How is it that Brett Payne, he is arriving at 4 p.m., 4 hours later? And we also know that the coroner, her name is Kathy Mabbitt, she said that she arrived about 5.5 hours after the 911 call. That is about 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m. If the 4 students were killed at approximately 4 p.m., 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m., that is about 12 hours for Brett Payne to arrive at the scene, that they've been deceased, and about 13 and a half hours for the coroner, Kathy Mabbitt, to arrive at the scene. They've been deceased for hours at this time. Hours. Where was the emergency? Where was the sense of getting help, finding out what's going on? The 911 call says Zaina was passed out. Passed out. Passed out does not describe what they say this scene looked like. So much blood, blood oozing out of the walls. 4 students murdered, bludgeoned, stabbed, brutally attacked. Okay? I want you to understand, I'm trying to lay this foundation for you to understand what the scene would have looked like, what it would have felt like, seeing such a graphic, imagining what each student had experienced. Where they lost their lives in such a violent manner. But you wouldn't know that, and you couldn't tell that, and you couldn't glean that from the 911 call. Why are they even upset in the 911 call if they never went and discovered Ethan and Zaina, or Zaina first, and then Kaylee and Maddie? Why are they so upset? Why are they in fear, scared, panicked? If they never even come upon their bodies, did they smell the smell of death? The blood? Because it has a smell, it has an odor. Very distinctive. You'll never forget that smell if you smell it. And at that time, you're looking at about 7.5, approximately 7.5 to 8 hours where their bodies had been laid either on the bed, on the floor, bleeding out. Okay, let's continue. So on page 1, paragraph 3, I'm going to read how Brett Payne describes finding and seeing the bodies of Zaina and Ethan on the second floor together in Zaina's bedroom, and also Kaylee and Maddie on the third floor in the same bed together. I want you to really listen to what I'm going to say, because I want you to understand one thing: the marks that are identified by red paint demonstrate to me, in my opinion, that there could have been multiple weapons, multiple objects used in the killing of Maddie, Kaylee, Zane, and Ethan. I want you to process this. Think about this. If Zaina receives injuries that are different from Ethan, however, Zaina and Ethan are in the same room together, and this attack is happening virtually at the same time. You have two people in the same room, possibly in the bed together, possibly woke, okay? But they have different injuries. So does that make you consider, just applying common sense, that there could have been more than one attacker? Because they don't have the same injuries. It appeared that Zaina, her injuries were from a blunt force edged object, okay? When we read about Ethan's injuries, his injuries are different. His injuries appear to be from a sharp force object. And then when we read about the murders of both Kaylee and Maddie, they both appear to have stabbings. So only Kaylee and Maddie had similar injuries. They had stab wounds. And as a medical examiner, they can count those individual stab wounds, because they'll be like punctures in the skin. You can literally count each one. You can measure them. You can never really know exactly how long the knife is, the blade of the knife, because sometimes you don't have the full knife go through. You can have a knife that doesn't always penetrate all the way through. You can have a shorter blade knife. You can have a knife that has a wider blade. You can have a knife that is smooth. You can have a knife that's serrated with edging. So you do want to look at each victim, the wounds, the injuries, because it would help identify what type of object or weapon was involved in their death, their murder. But also you can compare the injuries and the wounds to each other. So Kaylee and Maddie, they may have similar wound, similar injury patterns, but it would be very different because that's a stabbing. Whereas Zaina and Ethan, they have injuries that are different. Zaina has an injury that has an edge. Object had an edge. Whereas Ethan had blunt force injuries. And he may have had other injuries. We don't know everything, but we can glean from what Brett Payne put in the PCA in his statement and apply that to each victim. Okay, so let's read that now. Officer Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Zaina's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Zaina Cornoto's, hereafter Cornoto room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body. So as he's approaching Zaina's room, her body was visible. So again, I go back to Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson. Why did you not see Zaina's body? I don't understand. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Cornoto's, laying on the floor. So Zaina's body is gone. Cornoto was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. I know I have it written down, but I don't have it in front of me. It's fine. Zaina's wounds were caused from an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, hereafter Chapin. Chapin was also deceased with wounds later determined. Autopsy report provided by Spokane County Medical Examiner dated December 15, 2022, to be caused by sharp force injuries. So again, Ethan's wounds are from sharp force injury. Sharp force injuries. Zaina, I want to get the exact words. An edged weapon. And then we know that Kaylee and Maddie, it was stabbings. So let's continue. So I'm going to go to page 2. I'm in the second paragraph. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed. So Kaylee and Maddie are in a single bed in the room. Both Gonclaves and Mogen were deceased with visible stab wounds. Okay. So again, what happened? What happened during the hours after the murders? Could you smell the blood? Could you see the dripping of the blood down the walls throughout the house? Did you see a blood path as the killer or killers walked through the house? You see droplets of blood. Did you see cast off blood? Did you see blood on the walls? Blood on the furniture? Blood on the ceiling? Did you smell blood? Did you smell their bodies as they began to go through the process of decomposing? They have been deceased now by noon, about 7.5, 8 hours, if that is the correct time. Okay. Where was Murphy? Where was Murphy throughout these hours? On page 2 of Brett Payne's PCA, it reads, and I'm not going to read everything. Well, I'll just read part of the paragraph. I then follow Officer Smith upstairs to the 3rd floor of the residence. The 3rd floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Gonclave's, hereafter Gonclave's room. I later learned from review of Officer Nunez's body cam, there was a dog in the room when Moscow police officers initially responded. So, Murphy allegedly is found in Kaylee's room, not in the bedroom with Maddie and Kaylee. I don't know if there was a door for Maddie's bedroom, but that door was open when the officer came upon the 3rd floor. So where was Murphy throughout the evening, into the morning, into the finding of the police coming about noonish at 1122 King Road? It does not appear that Murphy had any blood on him. So, were the killer or killers kind enough to put Murphy in Kaylee's bedroom the entire night through the time where their bodies were found, locked away? That's about 7.5, 8 hours. Was Murphy not barking throughout the night? All night, having to use the restroom, being in a room locked by himself. Where was Murphy during the murders? After the murders, throughout all this time, up until noon? He must have been barking nonstop. No. Did he sense that something was wrong? Did he smell them decomposing? Did he smell the blood? He's in Kaylee's old bedroom, allegedly. Did Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson hear Murphy barking through all of this? All through 4 a.m. to noon. When you're texting Kaylee, Maddie, Zayna, and Ethan, you're calling their phones. Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson calling their phones, texting their phones. Is Murphy getting excited because he's hearing their phones ring? Is it triggering him to start barking again? Are you concerned that Murphy's up there, but you don't hear or get a response from Kaylee or Maddie on the 3rd floor? They're not responding to the text messages. They're not answering your phone calls, but you can hear Murphy on the 3rd floor. Would you think that Kaylee would leave Murphy unattended for this many hours? we have a lot. We have a lot to think about. We have a lot to consider. This is a complicated case. Let's continue. I want to go, let me just see. I want to talk a little bit about something. I didn't know anything about this when I heard about it, and I was interested, but I never looked into it a lot. But something that was said was, and I'm going to read it from the PCA, but that Dylan had described how she felt as a frozen shock phase. Do you guys remember that? I'm going to pull up a picture of Dylan. We're going to talk about her for a minute. So, get a picture of Dylan up. Focus on Dylan for just a minute. So, Dylan described feeling in a frozen shock phase, right? I had never heard of that before, but I could kind of understand, feeling fear, not knowing what to do, kind of stuck in that place. So I want to give you a little bit of background on the frozen shock phase, because this is going to apply when we're talking about the exchange that was happening between Dylan Mortenson and Bethany Funke from what was provided in the defense's objection, right? So let's talk about some of the things relating to the frozen shock phase. This is coming from verywellmind.com. It's titled What to Know About Traumatic Shock. It's dated February 13, 2024, and it's by Sanwana Gupta. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to read a portion of it, okay? Traumatic shock is any sudden, terrible experience that disrupts your well-being and overwhelms you. A traumatic experience can shock your system, causing you to go into a state of disassociation where your body and mind feel disconnected and nothing feels real. Your brain resorts to this adaptive defense mechanism when trying to cope with stressful or overwhelming events that it cannot prevent or escape. Shock helps reduce your awareness of your physical or emotional pain by dulling your senses, making you numb, and reducing your conscious cognizance of the event. Trauma can cause a wide range of physical and emotional symptoms. However, every individual reacts to it differently. These are some of the physical symptoms that may accompany traumatic shock: chills, dizziness, shakiness, lightheadedness, unconsciousness, nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, rapid heartbeat, headache, muscle tension, elevated blood pressure, rapid, shallow breathing. These are some of the emotional symptoms that may accompany traumatic shock: fear, panic, denial, anxiety, anger, irritability, helplessness, brain fog, confusion, disorientation, numbness, withdrawal, emotional outbursts, inability to concentrate, difficulty making decisions, decreased awareness of surroundings, a feeling of being unsafe. The dissociative state typically lasts for a short time, such as a few minutes or hours. However, in some cases of repeated or prolonged trauma, it can persist for a much longer period of time. Afterward, it's not uncommon for the person to be preoccupied with the event, forget it entirely, or have flashbacks or nightmares of it. While anything that significantly disrupts your emotional equilibrium can be considered a traumatic event, these are some examples of events that can cause traumatic shock: abandonment, abuse, accident, argument, bankruptcy, breakup, bullying, crime, death, divorce, domestic abuse, financial crisis, illness, imprisonment, infidelity, injury, job loss, life threatening event, a natural disaster, racism, abuse or assault, terrorism, violence, war, witnessing a traumatic incident that happens to someone else. You can continue on and read more into the article. It is linked on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. I just want you to have an understanding of this frozen shock phase, okay? So let's go back to Brett Payne's PCA and let's highlight what he said, DM said, okay, about the frozen shock phase. So on page 4, this is the last paragraph. It says, Dylan Mortenson stated she opened her door for the third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Dylan Mortenson described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan Mortenson as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. Dylan Mortenson locked herself in her room after seeing the male. Dylan Mortenson did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Okay? So, now we've established that Dylan Mortenson felt that she had been in a frozen shock phase. Okay? After seeing this person allegedly walking past her, going towards the back sliding door that's on the second floor, she became in a frozen shock phase. Okay. Now, with that, we're going to move into what we're here to talk about today, which is we're here to talk about some of the messages and activity that was going on during this alleged time, because we don't know, we will never know the exact time of the murders of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zayna. But we're going to talk about this period that has been provided in this objection. What was the activity on the cell phones of Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson? And this may not be all the activity. This could be selected activity that is provided, okay? So this may not be everything, but this is what we have been provided and what we're going to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to go now to the Hidden Horror Facebook page, because on there I have shared the objection to the state's motion about the text messages and testimony. Okay. You can read the entire document for yourself. It's about 6 pages long, but we're going to drop down and focus in starting at page 4. Okay. We're going to talk about these messages. Okay. So what we have been provided is some messages. And again, this is what we have. I'm not going to ever say that this is all that occurred. Okay. Every call, every text message, every part of activity. I'm just going to refer to this as what's been provided. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about is just highlight a few things that stand out to me. Okay. Now, the first thing I see is that at 2:10 a.m., Dylan Mortenson texts the driver, okay, that drove Haley and Maddie home from the grub truck. So that is very interesting to me because Haley and Maddie, they had arrived home at 1122 King Road about 1:56 a.m. So to my knowledge, Dylan Mortenson had a car, and her car was parked behind the property, 1122 King Road, and there was an area to park behind the house, and her car was allegedly parked there. So I was a little surprised that she would be texting the same driver that drove Kaylee and Maddie, picked them up from the grub truck and drove them home, and they arrived home about 1:56 a.m. I was interested in that, but more interesting, we know that both Kaylee and Maddie had no more activity allegedly on their phones at about 2:52 a.m. So my concern has always been, did the murder start at that time? Because there was no activity allegedly on both Kaylee and Maddie's phone, and they're on the 3rd floor. So that was my concern from the beginning. And when I see this release, and it shows me that at 2:53 a.m. right here, Maddy Mogen calls Bethany Funke. I am so curious to know, did Bethany answer that call? And if so, how long were they on the call? Did they talk? What was Maddie calling Bethany about at 2:53 a.m.? Because we have heard that Kaylee was texting, calling, texting a person back to back, leading up until when there were no more calls or messages on both Kaylee and Maddie's phone at 2:52 a.m. I am just extremely curious. What did Maddie call Bethany about? Great question, right? And then if we go down at 3:51 a.m., so there's an hour gap. Dylan Mortenson, she creates a new contact in her phone. So of course, my curiosity is, well, it's surprising that they say that because we were told, and I can read it, we were told that Dylan was woken up at 4 a.m., right? So if Dylan is woken up at 4 a.m., how can she already be up and putting a new contact in her phone at 3:51 a.m.? She's already up. She was already up. So on page 3 of Brett Payne's affidavit, it reads, this is the last paragraph. Dylan Mortenson and Bethany Funke both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. Okay? 4 a.m. Know that. If we go down to page 4, the first paragraph, it reads, Dylan Mortenson stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Now, put in quotation marks originally, because that always bothered me. That made me believe she moved. She left her room and went somewhere else in the house, right? Because you wouldn't have to say originally. Always felt that, but we later find out through the text messages what happened, okay? But it says Dylan Mortenson stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Dylan Mortenson stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Gonclaves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the third floor. A short time later, Dylan Mortenson said she heard what she thought was Gonclave say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensic download of Chronoto's phone showed this could also have been Chronoto, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. Well, we all know that Haley Gonclaves, and Xana Kernodle, their voices were very different. Xana Kernodle had a very distinctive voice, and I believe that Dylan Mortenson could tell the difference between Xana's voice and Kaylee's voice. And if she thought that was Kaylee's voice, I believe that's Kaylee's voice because Xana sounds totally different. But moreover, it says that she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. But we see right here at 3:51 a.m., she was already on her phone, in her phone, creating a phone contact. Now, do we know who the contact is? Do we know what she was doing prior to that? Because we have this hour gap in time, about an hour, right? She wasn't asleep at 4 a.m. This had to happen prior because clearly she was already up, thinking and doing things and already on her phone prior to this 4 a.m. time, prior to this 3:51 a.m. time, right? But okay. So again, I have said before that there are a lot of calls being made to the various roommates, including Ethan. There are text messages. And what I don't understand is you have no one between Ethan and Zaina on the second floor with you, as well as Kaylee and Maddie on the third floor above you responding. Don't you hear those dings when you text them? Can't you hear their phones ringing when you call them? Can't you hear Murphy on the third floor barking? It just doesn't make sense. On top of you saying that you, Dylan, saw someone in black in the house and they walked past you. You also said that you heard Zaina crying. If we go down to the next paragraph, also on page 4, it reads, Dylan Mortenson stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. But it's not just a comment anymore, right? She sees someone. Dylan Mortenson stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Fernando's room. Zaina was crying. Dylan Mortenson then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She heard Zaina crying. The roommates, including Ethan, are not responding to the text messages. They're not answering your phone calls. You hear Zayna crying. You hear ruckus on the third floor. You hear Murphy barking. You see someone walk past you in black. You're hearing sounds. You're hearing an altercation. You're hearing a fight. You're hearing a battle. You're hearing things fall. You're hearing things get knocked around. You're hearing Zayna crying. You're hearing the ruckus on the third floor. You're hearing all of this activity. Let's go to the next page. So the roommates, Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson, they having a texting exchange. Bethany tells Dylan, come to my room. Bethany says, listen, I'm on the first floor, you're on the second floor, you're hearing everything, you just seen someone in the house. Run to my room, come down to the first floor. And this is where I think the phrase Dylan originally was in her bedroom on the second floor, but I believe at this time when Bethany suggested, come run down here to the first floor to my room, and then that way we can be together. You and I can be together. We don't have to text each other anymore. You and I can be together. We will feel better. We will feel safer together. Now, what I want to highlight next, Dylan, she begins to use Snapchat. Now, as I said yesterday, even though that video did not turn out okay, I didn't know what all of these different apps were. So I'm going to just quickly go over them, and I do have notes about them because I don't have any of these. So I want to show you. This is the Snapchat, and let me get my notes on the Snapchat. Okay, so I learned that Snapchat, it allows you to chat in a group, but the messages, they are deleted by default. So what you say is not being saved, it's not being recorded forever. However, they have the ability, because I watched a video on this, you have the ability to save the chats by tapping on them. You can save them. So that's an option with Snapchat, okay? Now, that's Snapchat, okay? Now we have, let me share my screen again. We have this other app, if you will, is called Yik Yak. Okay. Now it says clearly here you can anonymously connect with everyone at your college. So what I found out about Yik Yak is it's an anonymous messaging app, and it's for college kids. So you are able to keep your identity within the college, and people don't know who you are when you write things on this messaging app. You can remain anonymous. Okay, that is Yik Yak. Another one that they were using, I have heard about Instagram. Instagram is where you share photos videos, stories, and reels. Um, so that was another app, um, okay, that they were using. And then I noticed that if you look at the activity, if you look at the activity, you see that Dylan Mortenson, she is more so involved in going online, with the Snapchat, with the Instagram. Uh, Dylan went on Yik Yak. Dylan went on TikTok. In fact, I noticed that when I looked through all of the history, Bethany Funke, she only used Instagram and Snapchat fewer times. Dylan used Instagram and Snapchat a lot more, okay? And I wondered to myself, while they're both in the house and they may be together at this point, why are they going on social media? Why does Dylan Mortenson keep going on social media? They're sending messages, they're receiving messages. Dylan's making phone calls, right? And I wonder, were they checking to see if the information about the murders, were they already out? Were they checking to see if someone had said it anonymously on Yik Yak, on the Snapchat? Okay, that was something that I was very interested in. I don't know if they can obtain the information, the messages that they send and receive. That's something that they can try to obtain. Okay, um, so yeah, I wanted you to know that. And remember, during all of this time, this is now allegedly after the murders. This activity is after the murders of Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Zayna. So, for example, Bethany Funk starts to call her parents. She's reaching out, and this is early as 7:30 a.m. Now, remember, we didn't know what Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortenson were doing during the murders and after the murders. It's been hours now. It's been about 3 hours when Bethany Funk reaches out to her dad and she's calling her mom and she's still trying to connect with people outside of the house, right? Now, right about 8:41 a.m., Bethany takes some photos. And I'm wondering, what were the photos of? Did Bethany Funk take pictures of the crime scene? Did Bethany Funk take pictures of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, Zayna? Did she take pictures of the blood, the footprints? Um, what were the photos of? Did she come out of the room? You know, can we get a record of what those photos were? Did she send the photos? I know in a prior video I had brought up, you know, did anybody take pictures or video when they came to the house? These people that were called to the house, the other people, their friends, if they were in a fraternity or sorority or just friends or other college students that went to the university, you know, did they take pictures and video? Well, we see now that Bethany Funk did take some photos. We just don't know what those photos were, but I think we need to find out, right? Were these photos shared on Snapchat, for example, on Yik Yak, all these anonymous platforms? Were the photos shared with friends, with trusted allies, with people in the sorority, people in the fraternity? And then right here, at 10:03 a.m., it shows that Dylan Mortenson was on Indeed. And I tell you, it really surprised me. This is Indeed's website. Indeed is a website where people go to search for jobs. Jobs are posted there. You can apply for jobs. You can post your resume, things like that. She was on Indeed, which was also pretty sad because you have your fellow roommates plus Ethan deceased, and we have to understand the mindset of Dylan and Bethany. What were they doing in the hours after the murders? What were they doing? Their phones were working. They were not thinking to call 911. They called the parents. They reached out to other people. They text their friends. They searched online. They're on the Instagram and the Snapchat. They're sending messages. They're receiving messages. They're making phone calls. They're texting others. They're checking TikTok. You see the history. You're seeing it for yourself, right? This is their history. This went on for hours. Remember I told you the first call that they're showing us is at 7:30 a.m.? This online activity is going on for hours. You know, poor Ethan and Zayna and Kaylee and Maddie. No one's checking on them. Not even checking on them. They called others. Calling other people. Messaging other people, even looking for a job or posting their resume. I'm not sure. But they don't call 911. Their parents, they didn't tell them to call 911 as early as 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. They didn't tell them to call 911. No one told them to call 911 to check on their roommates. This is 4 hours before the 911 call, approximately. Bethany's mom or dad didn't tell them to call 911. They're sending messages. They're receiving messages. Got a text to Maddie Mogen at 10:23 a.m. Did you hear the text go through and see that there's still no response? Do you hear Murphy barking? Three and a half more hours pass, and Dylan Mortenson is still texting her dad. Why haven't they called 911? Only until 11:56 a.m. We have hours going by. Hours. They have the ability to talk to each other, to call people outside of the house, to call their parent, to go on social media, to text and everything. Remember the frozen shock phase? Dylan said she was in a frozen shock phase, but I found her on Instagram 6 times, Snapchat 6 times. I'm sorry, Instagram 7 times, Snapchat 6 times. What happened to the frozen shock phase? Are you really confused? Are you really scared? Have you been in your bedroom or Bethany's bedroom all these hours? We know you weren't sleeping. Clearly, you weren't sleeping at all. You were up for hours. The front door Bethany's bedroom, she's on the first floor. She's not far from the front door. Why didn't she just leave? Walk out the front door. It's daylight. It's been daylight for hours. No one leaves. Remember, you're scared, you're afraid. You feel we should be together. During this traumatic event, seeing someone walking through your house. And that is just the bare minimum. What about the bloodbath? What about blood everywhere? What about your roommates being bludgeoned to death, hit, stabbed? I'm going to say allegedly, killed, murdered. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that the 911 call was made so many hours later after hours of activity online, social media, texting, calling others, sharing messages, calling parents, and no one called for help. No one called the police. Nobody called for an ambulance. You know, what are people to believe? This is dark. This is ugly. This is brutal. This is evil. Are you checking on the Snapchat and the Instagram and the Yik Yak and all of these other social medias, the TikTok? Were you searching to see if the murders had already gotten out? Did someone leak the information? Are you concerned that somebody leaked that all four were deceased or dead? What did you say in the messages? What messages were you sharing? What were people telling you to do? What were they recommending? Who was on the Snapchat? Who was on there? What did you say to them? What did they say to you? Did you tell them about the killings? Did you tell them about what happened in the house? Did you describe to them that someone was in the house? How you heard Murphy barking? How you heard Zaina crying? Did you tell them that you saw a stranger? Did you tell them about the voices you heard? Because if you told me any of that, I would tell you need to call the police. They say, Zaina was attacked with an edged weapon. You would hear her screams. You heard her cries. You would hear a struggle. She had defensive wounds. Ethan was attacked with a sharp force object. He had injuries on his body. And I've been told very awful things about what happened to Ethan. And my heart literally breaks. It really, really hurts for what allegedly happened to Ethan Chapman. So disturbing, so dark and evil. Maddie and Kaylee being stabbed to death. Kaylee receiving upwards of over 50 stab wounds. Over 50 stab wounds. This is one of the two mattresses we moved from 1122 King Road. You can see the blood dried up on the mattress. You see the blood. They bled out for hours. Bludgeoned, beaten, stabbed, mercilessly. You can hear their screams, their cries, being brutally attacked, viciously attacked. Kaylee receiving defensive wounds. Maddie having a mixture of 3 DNAs under her fingernail clippings. A mixture of 3 unknown male DNAs. There was male DNA found on the handrail from the first to the second floor. Why didn't law enforcement, why didn't they look into who that DNA belonged to? Because we know that there are 3 different types of injuries amongst Ethan and Zaina and Kaylee and Maddie. Kaylee and Maddie had stab wounds. Zaina was attacked with an edged weapon, and Ethan was attacked with a sharp force object, something sharp. That means there's blows being applied. He's getting hit. He's getting blows. That's the type of injuries Ethan had. The weapon that was used on Zaina, it had an edge to it. So it's actually making markings on her body as they're striking her. These are 3 different types of weapons. It makes me wonder, does the 3 different type of weapons indicate and relate to all of these different male unknown DNAs? Because those DNAs, they don't belong to Brian Kohlberger. There's blood on the handrail. There was a bloody glove. Don't know if the glove was latex, if it was plastic, if it was a cloth glove. We have no idea. But we know that was also male DNA. We have all of these unknown sources of DNA. Do we have a multiple set of attackers attacking the victims in different ways? Kaylee and Maddie on the 3rd floor being stabbed with some type of knife. And then Ethan and Zaina being attacked, being physically attacked with some type of weapon that's not a knife. Zaina fighting back, receiving all of these injuries from defensive wounds. And on that 911 call, we only hear that Zaina is passed out. And that makes me think that is a drug overdose. You don't mention any injuries. You don't mention any blood, how she's violently, viciously attacked. You can visibly see that she's been attacked. She suffered from injuries and she is deceased, as well as Ethan. Ethan is said to have been brutally attacked. Viciously attacked. And the 911 call doesn't convey any of it. And the lead of Detective Brett Payne, he arrives on the scene approximately 4 p.m., about 4 hours after the 911 call. Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner, arrives approximately 5:30 p.m., 5:30 p.m., approximately 5 to 5.5 hours after the 911 call. Where is the urgency? Where is the emergency? Where is the help? Where is the aid? No one's responding to a scene such as what is described. Blood everywhere. Blood oozing out of the walls, dripping down the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor, on the furniture, in the beds, on the mattress. It was a horrific crime scene. Some that law enforcement that had been working for 20 to 30 years had never seen such a violent scene as this. Shocking to the core. They probably needed therapy after being at this crime scene. They should have been able to see the blood, smell the blood, see the wounds of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zayna. See their wounds. See that they were injured and that they were dead. They were not passed out. You say someone's passed out if you think they died of an overdose because they're not moving anymore. You don't say someone's passed out and they've been stabbed to death, they've been beaten to death. Their throat is possibly cut. Their fingers are possibly cut off. They have cuts through on the arms, through their clothes, stabbings through their body. Kaylee was stabbed over 50 times allegedly. So you don't say that a person is passed out. And you try to text them and call them for hours, and you can hear their phones ringing for hours. You hear the dog upstairs barking. Did you take pictures of Kaylee, Maddie, Zayna, and Ethan? Did you take pictures of the house, of the crime scene, of the blood? Did you share the pictures? Did you send the pictures on the Snapchat? Did you send them to people? Did you call people outside of law enforcement? You had outgoing messages. People reported you sent things. You sent messages on the Snapchat. Early in the morning, it was reported that the front door of the house was open at 8 a.m. It's reported that you were outside in the backyard as early as between 8 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. with others. Dylan, when you created the contact, who was the new contact at 3:50 a.m., 3:51 a.m.? Because you're telling law enforcement you woke up at 4 a.m. No, you were already woke. Your phone tells on you. The truth comes out. You were already woke. You call your dad, Bethany, you call your mom, you call everybody else except police. You don't get an ambulance for people that are deceased. You know they're already dead. This is dark. You weren't sleeping. You weren't sleeping in your bed. You were woke and you were up. Why did Maddie call you, Bethany? What did she call you for at 2:53 a.m.? Did you answer her call? And Dylan, you were not in a frozen shock phase. You were up. You were active. You were on social media for hours. You weren't sleeping in your bed at 4 a.m. You were on your phone. And what photos did you take, Bethany? What photos did you take? We're going to go over a video that I shared before. This video, it talks about how the frat, they were on the Snapchat that morning, November 13th. And they said that when they opened up the Snapchat, there were tons of messages. And initially, they said that there was a stabbing at 1122 King Road, but that the stabbing changed to an overdose. And people believe that Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zayna, well, they didn't even know that Ethan was in the house at the time. They knew the house was the girl's house. But they thought that they had OD, and they weren't surprised because they said, we bought drugs in this house. We bought drugs from them. And that they thought that maybe they had a bad batch of drugs, and that is why they OD'd. And they just said that the police, they never came around. They never asked them anything. They really didn't put an effort into finding out the truth. And they had all kind of FBI agents on campus, near campus, but nobody cared to ask the fraternity. What did they know? They didn't ask them. They didn't ask them. So let's go over this last video. I'm going to share it now. This video is Idaho 4, 8 hours to call 911. It's linked on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. You can check the full video out. We're just going to listen to a few moments of it. So let's get started.
Form your own thoughts, but listen here what this guy has to say.
Yeah, so I woke up and I was super groggy from the night before too.
Let me say this. This video was initially, this interview was initially done by Truth and Transparency on YouTube. She has a YouTube channel called Truth and Transparency.
So I still drank and smoked a little bit, not gonna lie.
I finally got rid of my eye bags and dark circles. Nobody believes I'm 66 anymore, and my friends think I got a...
Fourth, the question still remains, why wasn't 911 called for 8 hours? You can feel scared, whatever. Why? And it's really important that these people are heard. So just form your own thoughts, but listen here what this guy has to say.
Welcome to the Klondike
My
Adventures
apologies,
game.
there's another
I promise
commercial.
ever see. Get ready for the expeditions in the wild with the most fluffy helpers and friends.
Yeah, so I woke up and I was super groggy from the night before too, because I still drank and smoked a little bit, not gonna lie. But still a Saturday, you know. But so I don't remember like exactly when I woke up. I just remember like waking up and opening up my Snapchat, and there were dozens of Snapchat messages in all the group chats. And I just remember like, oh, this is kind of whack. And then like I got up and I was like getting ready for work, and then like when I kind of like woken up a little bit more, I started to go through them because I did not want to have to read a lot of shit early in the morning. And then yeah, I ended up like I was just sitting there scrolling through it, and then yeah, opened up the messages, and then there it was. It was like, holy shit, did you guys hear about what happened? Like, blah, 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 and I'm scrolling up, and there's just, I mean, lines and lines and lines of text. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's awake. I mean, and this is before 9:30 on a Sunday, and I remember that because I had to go to work, and I ended up not going because I wanted to be with my brothers, right? Like, I don't remember what exact time I woke up, but I remember, like, yeah, we were all talking about it. We all knew about it, and, like, my boss and my coworkers were texting me, asking me, like, if everything was okay, and they had even heard about things. They heard, like, it was a shooting and stuff like that. Yeah, it was kind of weird because, like, at the beginning, like, the very, very first messages where people were talking about the stabbings, like a stabbing had occurred. and then it changed to an OD, and it was just kind of weird. Like looking back on it, it changed to an OD so quickly, and like nobody questioned it, and like we didn't question it either because we knew there were drugs in that house, and like just genuinely thought like, okay, they got a bad batch, and that's just what happened, right? Because you see it on the news, it happens in bigger cities. Guess it just ended up, coming this far up. We live in a tiny town. We're a couple hours away from Canada. We don't really think like a lot of bad stuff like that gets up here. But
so you said you had to go to work, and you said you had to be to work at 9:30. So this would have happened before, like you got to work.
No, this was definitely and it was like I don't know, 5-10 minute drive to work, and like I had to like get ready too. So you're talking like well before 9 o'clock in the morning at least. And like I'm not late to like I don't like to be late to things. My parents taught me never to be late to things. So I always wake up on time. Doesn't matter if I'm hungover or not. If I know I'm gonna be hungover, I'll wake up an extra half hour early to be hungover for a little bit and then get through it. It's not hard. I don't know. We learn how to work hard, play hard here. Yes, it was basically, long story short, yeah, I know for a fact it was before 9:30. It was like within like the first couple of messages, and then it just immediately, the rest of it was like all OD. Like I remember like a small portion of it was like stabbings all the way at the top, like the very first few messages, and then like the rest of it was all OD. I was like, oh, okay, well if everyone's talking about an OD, it's got to be an OD, right? And like I said before, it didn't surprise us. We just kind of figured, that's what happened. They pulled a short straw with the bad batch. It was like we heard that they got stabbed, and it's like, was it all of them? No, we heard it was a few of them, and then it was like, oh, it changed to an OD, and it was like 3 of the girls, and then it was like only the girls. We didn't even hear about Ethan until like way later in the day too.
And with a case as big as this, you would assume that the police would be interviewing anyone they possibly.
So I'm gonna play this. I guess I'm just gonna move on to when they talked about the house had drugs, because we already know the police really messed things up, and we don't have to keep going through that.
Take it with a grain of salt, please, but I just thought it was important to share this.
This house in here at 1122 King, is it true that people in that house?
This portion is also from Truth and Transparency, okay? The YouTube channel Truth and Transparency. It's a great channel. Check it out, okay?
Have sold products.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
And you've bought from them, or other people have, or you guys like throw down
100%.
together?
Yep, all the above. Well, like I said, I mean, they're your friends too. So you go over there after you get done with your homework, and it's a Thursday afternoon, but you want to have a couple drinks, and you maybe get a little fucked up, but not too fucked up. And so you're just gonna go, hang out with these girls, and maybe do a little bit, and drink a little bit, and play a couple beer games. Be back by like midnight, right?
Well, the 1122 King house though ends up that this year they merge, or were these girls still in?
That's weird. No. That's the weird thing. Is that it's like that house, they mixed them all up. So it's like a mixed bag of like all the different types of girls from different. I mean, like even if they're in the same sororities, they didn't do the same things either.
I've told this story before a couple.
Hey, let me pause it here and set this up. This is by the YouTube channel Evo LECJ Show. They're talking about after the murder, so about between, let's just say 8 o'clock and 8:30, 8:15 and 8:30. This is a property that's in view of the backyard of 1122 King Road, and this is an eyewitness describing what he saw, which is he saw 5 people in the backyard as early as between 8 and 8:15 and 8:30 a.m. Okay.
Couple weeks ago, and it was that when I woke up in the morning, I woke up around maybe about 8:15, the latest maybe 8:30, and I smoke cigarettes, so I went outside to the balcony to smoke a cigarette because we don't smoke in the apartment, and I seen 5 people outside in the backyard area. The apartments that I was at, there was a balcony, and if you go to the right of the balcony, the house is literally like next to my shoulder on the right hand side. So it's like,
there's the apartment. Oh, that house.
It's literally there, and we had a lot of people
I
there. Yeah, we were partying just like an average night. We had a lot of people in the apartment. We partied all the time. There was always ruckus that was going on through the neighborhood. You know, for the most part, I never really seen or heard anything that was really strange up until like about 3 a.m. But in the morning, I remember seeing Dylan because I know Dylan. She's taller, so I can kind of pick her out.
You heard what he said. He said, I hadn't heard anything strange until about 3 a.m. And again, that call that Maddie Mogen made at 2:53 a.m. to Bethany Funke, that is interesting in the fact that no more activity on Kaylee and Maddie's phones at approximately 2:52 a.m. That it also is interesting, right? But we know that Brian Koberger, he is found to be on surveillance on a camera at about 2:52 a.m. Okay, leaving his home. So the timing doesn't fit. But let's continue so you can hear the rest of this.
Out, and I know Emma was there, and Emma's friend, and there was a guy that was also like I said, really pale. I wasn't sure who he was with light colored hair, and there was another guy that had a hoodie on that I couldn't identify. But they were all just literally passing a joint around because they would wake up and smoke, and they were just all smoking. Like, I would have never guessed anything happened at that house when I woke up that morning until I found out later. I didn't leave until like 1:30, but I would have never guessed that anything happened because they were just out smoking like normal, like nothing had happened.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so have they compared the people that were at the house allegedly in the backyard, their DNA to the blood that was found on the handrail, the blood that was found in the glove, and then the DNA 3 mixture under the nails of Maddie Mogen? Have they compared that DNA to the people that have been eyewitness as being in the backyard as early as between 8:15 and 8:30? Have they compared the DNA to see if it matches? They say that it's male DNA. All of this male DNA, unknown. We don't know who the DNA belongs to. Do we not know because they didn't try? They didn't try to find out? Or they're unable to find out? My question is, why are Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortenson's reactions so frantic and scary and upset on the 911 call when they claimed they didn't know what happened? They didn't know what happened to the roommates. They didn't know that they were killed. Why is their reaction so big, so distraught if they had no knowledge? And why are their reactions so big when they had been up for hours? They had been up after 4:30 a.m. throughout the morning, because we're looking at their history on their phones. They're online, they're on apps, they're calling people, they're messaging people, they're receiving messages, they're calling others, they're texting. Why are they upset? And I do want to share this recent picture of Brian Koberger that has come out. I can do a whole video on it, but I don't think it's necessary. It would be a very quick video. We have to use common sense. If this attack, as described, was heinous, it was vicious, it was violent, there were weapons used, there was a knife used, Kaylee and Zaina allegedly have defensive wounds, they have fought the attacker or attackers, Ethan being brutally killed, Kaylee receiving over 50 stab wounds allegedly, we would believe that the killer or killers, they had been in a fight. They had taken on defensive wounds. They had been injured. Their blood is potentially left at this crime scene. They have received cuts, scratches, abrasions, injuries. They've been in a battle. The house says there's been a battle here. There's been a murder here. There's been a vicious attack here. There's blood everywhere. Not my words, oozing out of the walls. And when we look at this selfie, allegedly taken the morning of November 13th, of Brian Koberger, the suspect, we see him with no scratches, no bruises, no marks, no injuries, no abrasions, no cuts. I believe that the killer or killers would have left this scene with some injuries, some bruising, some scratches, some cuts. Again, Brian Koberger doesn't have any defensive wounds. Please, everyone, let me know what you think. Let me know your opinion. Okay, I really appreciate the time you spend with me. I thank you so, so much. You know, we're going to continue to focus on the evidence at this time and going forward. That's what's going to be our focus, okay? So thank you for spending this time with me. I want you to remember to please stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy, be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody.